Hello. All right, here we go. We're back. Sorry, guys and gals. I think it's working now. So let me know if you can hear my voice. So this is Jeff Coga here, and welcome to the training. So again, if you can hear my voice, let's try this again. And you can see the smiley face. The second one, let me know in the chat box. Yes, Jeff, you can hear me, so that way we can figure this out. So. All right, so yes, finally can hear you. I am logged in, but we'll drop the screen share for a bit. Be on the audio for the next 15 minutes. We'll be listening. Cool. That's awesome. Again, for the folks, yes, Steven said yes. We got Frank saying yes. Jeff, I can hear you. There you are. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, cool. So it seems like you guys and gals can hear my voice now, finally, so I apologize for that. Now, today's training, all right, something that I want to talk about, because as you guys and gals, you know my position when it comes to lead generation. As I say that we don't have a lead generation problem anymore in the real estate space because of the things that we do, like data appending, as well as like the DBC, right, direct bypass communication marketing, and being able to literally light up our phone with inbound calls, right? So with that, the challenge that individuals typically run into is more of a conversion issue, right? Where when you have conversations with sellers, how do you actually convert them better? How do you increase that? How do you set more appointments? How do you continue the conversation, right? So today is kind of more of an advanced training, all right, when it comes to sales and persuasion. And I think it's a really important part to talk about. And the reason why I think that it will be good for y'all to listen to today's training is because I've been kind of the behind-the-scenes guys for a lot of the so-called educators and gurus out in the internet land. And I have written their sales presentations, as well as help them craft many of the training programs out there. So they turn to me for a lot of this stuff. So I want to talk about why sales is simply an orchestrated presentation and why you must become a master at crafting rebuttals. All right, and this in itself is one of the probably the highest and best use of your time when it comes to crafting these rebuttals. All right, and then tying them into storylines that people can relate to based on their age, gender, what generation they're from. Are they a millennial, Gen X, right? Baby boomer, right? Talking in a language using the specific choices of words that people can actually grasp onto and hold on to, so they say, you know what? This person is a trusted advisor. Okay, a trusted advisor, right? No one likes a salesperson. Everyone likes to buy, but no one likes a salesperson, right? So you have to position yourself as a trusted advisor. And many of the things that I talk about, especially with my sales guys and people that are going out there to get contracts as individuals, you do not want to be an order taker. Because if you're simply order taking, meaning you're regurgitating information that they can probably just Google, then there really isn't any value that you're giving them. And if that happens, can you get away with doing some deals, getting some closing? And that short answer is yes, you can. All right? Yes, you can. But just remember, as the market changes, if your rebuttals are not changing with the market, then, in my opinion, you're not a true salesperson. Okay? So again, you want to be an educator first, give value, and when you do that, I'm talking about true value, then you become a trusted advisor, and then sales becomes the kind of the next common thing of saying, hey, I want to work with this person, all right? So let's go ahead and get into this. Give me a second. I'm going to take a sip of water here. All right, so let's talk about today's presentation, okay? But before I do, I have a question for y'all. Help me, okay, so I can help you. Question. As interest rate goes up, real estate prices does what? Type your answer in the chat box, please. All right, now if you can't type it in, I don't know why, but please engage with me because I would love to have a conversation with you about this particular topic. All right? All right, what is the common saying on this? As interest rate goes up, real estate prices does what? Ooh, there it goes. There was a delay on it. It finally came in. I know for some, they're just like, Jeff, are you really asking this? Yes, I am really asking this, so follow along. All right, so let me ask it in a different way. If a seller or buyer asks you the question, hey, by the way, is interest rates going up? What is real estate prices going to do? What is your answer? Type it in the chat box. Type it in their chat box. All right. Now we're starting to get some a little bit more sophistication in the actual feedback in question. Okay. Let me actually unmute some of the people in here. Oh, Renee, you're on here. Okay. There we go. Renee, are you there?
I am.
Say hi to everyone, Renee.
Hello, everyone.
All right, Renee. So as interest rate goes up, real estate prices does what?
Well, my thought is they're likely to drop because of affordability.
Affordability.
People
Okay,
can
great.
afford less house.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask a question for you, a follow-up question to that, Renee. Have you looked at interest rates and historically what it has done?
I have. I remember back in the 80s and whatnot, it went up.
What went up?
The prices went up.
The real estate prices went up, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever tell that to your clients, sellers, or someone else when you're having this conversation, when they ask you that?
I don't think I've gotten these kind of questions from sellers before.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that and the fact that you openly told me that. So I'm going to go ahead and mute you on that. Okay, Renee? All right. Now, I asked this question, okay, is because we're going to talk a lot about positioning and we're going to talk about persuasion and we're going to talk about how to continue the conversation and position you guys and gals as trusted advisors, right? So the common theme is this, is what? As interest rate goes up, real estate prices does what? It goes down, right? I realize we're missing the word goes in there. Does what? Prices does what? It says down. Okay, so it goes down, all right? Now, that's a common saying. Right? In the sales environment, we talk about that. Now, why is that? That is the question I continuously have asked myself, and some of my mentors have been, I call them third rodeo real estate guys, right? Which is they've been in the real estate game since the 70s, the 80s, right? And you heard Renee talk about how in the 80s it changed it a little bit, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that and why this is going to help you as the real estate market changes, okay? So let's talk about this. What's the truth, right? The truth is, right? What is the truth? Right? What is the truth? All right? And one of my favorite books when it comes to this is I highly recommend you guys and gals to read this if you can. So that way, all of us in the real estate space, right, we have to elevate. We must elevate. Why? Because technology is disrupting the whole industry. You guys know this. Look at how we're marketing, guys, right? Guys and gals. We're disrupting it. So when we do that, we have to elevate. We have to elevate. So I tell individuals it's all about knowledge, right? And being able to take that knowledge and then turning it into wisdom that has practical, applications where you can educate people to help them out make a better financial decision for their future. Okay? So what does this all mean? This is my favorite book. Do you know who Robert Schiller is? Right? Irrational Exuberance, okay? I highly recommend for you guys and gals to pick this book up and read it because of where we're currently at in the real estate market and where we're at in the cycle. Because this is going to allow you to have conversations, especially with sophisticated sellers, all right? Sophisticated sellers. Now, if you're talking to individuals where this stuff doesn't really matter, right? Then yes, like, hey, you know what? With all means, right? Like you can just do the same old song and dance. But, all right? Certain places of the country, it's a little bit different, as I say, right? Like I was out in San Francisco a couple months ago, right? And I was talking to one of the big brokers over there, and because I work with them, and we're at his office having a conversation, and the conversation really came into this about sales and persuasion and rebuttals and things like that. And what we've come to agree upon is that people in the Bay Area in San Francisco is a little bit more analytical than most places, like especially like Los Angeles, right? Like Los Angeles, if you're in Southern California, we got a lot of feelers in here, right? Very kind of like flashy, kind of feelers, as I like to call it, right? Versus a lot more analytical people in the Bay. So they want information that, guess what, other people don't want when they're here in Los Angeles. Right? And it's about identifying who that particular person you're talking to and being able to give that information, right? But also at the same time, if you read this particular book, you'll start learning about history and how it applies currently right now, because the old cliche saying is what? History never repeats itself, but it rhymes. And it certainly does, ladies and gentlemen. I learned this the hard way because when the boom started back in the early 2000, right? I bought my first house in 2004, rode the market up, all right? And my mentors, who I learned the game from, they would say, "Hey Jeff, young chap, you better be careful, all right? We haven't seen prices like this, and we got these funky loans coming in, and hey, you need to be careful, right?" And then I'm just like, nah, this is fine. Like, come on, it's gonna keep on going up, right? And you're doing that, and boom, what happened? The Great Recession, right? Got my butt kicked handed to me sideways, left and right. All right, got an iron fist in my mouth, got bleeding. It bled. And some of you guys and gals that are in here today, right? We've talked personally over the phone, and I know you've been impacted by that. All right, and then some of the folks maybe in here just started their career right at the bottom of the game, right? Which is a completely different game as we're starting to go into an area where we have, supply shortage. Okay, so the pitch has to change. Right? The rebuttals have to change because the psychology of the people in our country is changing. Okay? So this is kind of the part that we're going to be talking about today. All right? So who does this benefit, right? When you actually say as interest rate goes up, real estate prices does what? Go down. Who does this benefit when you say that line or when you physically hear that, right? Who does this benefit? And it's supposed to say goes in here, so I'm sorry about that, right? Who does this benefit and benefit? Okay, we got some. Hold on, let me fix this. This is bugging me. So sorry, guys. Let me fix this. Okay. So this is bugging me. I'm sorry. So yeah. So type the answer in. Okay, and I'm gonna change this because it's bugging me as I'm looking at this, and I'm sure you guys and gals know why it's bugging me as I'm looking at this, right? Who does this benefit when you say this? Right? Here we go. Here's the answers. Okay. People that are doing loans, right? Because you can, be like, hey, man. Hey. Right? Buyers and their agents. Tell them you have, yeah. I do have spellitis. Yeah, I have spellitis and grammaritis. Buyers accept their payments stay the same, right? I think Steven said this is for sure when he's talking about probably the analytical stuff, right? All right, so who does this benefit? And that is the question. So let's talk about this, all right? And we have some case studies, but pop quiz time, right? And so as interest rate is going up, what would the objections for a buyer be, right? What are some of the objections as interest rate is going up? Now, if this is your first rodeo where interest rate has been historically low, you probably have never faced this before, but who or what type of objections would you get? Right? Think about this for a second. All right? As interest rate is going up, what type of objections? I know some of you guys and gals already talked about it, right? Affordability, right? My cost is going up, right? I can, hey, buy less house, right? Okay? All right? So let's talk about this, right? Is what? Common ones is something like this, right? They'll say, hey, I'll wait for prices to go down, right? Because they have in their brain, hey, as interest rate goes up, real estate prices does the what, right? So I'll wait till prices go down, right? You might hear some of that. Now, we're talking buyers specifically here, okay? And then we'll talk probably, if we have time here today, about sellers, all right? But we'll talk about also, and if we don't, we'll talk about it next week possibly or the week after. I'll figure it out, okay? But I want to talk about the buyer side first because, look, you're going to run into more buyers, all right? Okay? So I'll wait for prices to go down, right? You might run into something like that. Okay? What is another one? Not sure if I can afford it now, right? Kind of affordability, right? Okay? And, what happened? We're supposed to see another one. Hold on here. So, wow, what is going on here with my slides today, ladies and gentlemen? Wow, what is going on here, ladies and gentlemen? I'm sorry about that. So, let me pull this up. Yeah, not sure if I can afford it now, right? Affordability, we talked about this. And then another one's, I don't want to pay that much in interest, right? You might want. Right? Okay. Renee say, I'll wait for rates to come back down. Okay. Great. All right. Now, remember earlier I talked about this. History never repeats itself, but it rhymes. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into kind of let's hop into DeLorean for a second here. All right. And we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the past. All right. And then from there, we're going to then talk about how to craft rebuttals. All right. Because I'm a sales and marketing guy first. above anything else, all right? But I'm a firm believer when it comes to, and I've trained tons of salespeople, which is, are scripts good? Yes, it is. It's better than not having it. Okay? But what's better is to train your salespeople or yourself to understand that, hey, sales is a process, and a sales is literally a what? A conversation that you have to have with an ideal customer client that you can literally control, right? It is an orchestrated presentation, in my opinion. That every question, the choices of words you use, is a process, and you have to get them to the finish line. Okay? So, but to do that, it's about storytelling. All right? About storytelling, because story sells, facts what? Tell. Okay? So let's go ahead and hop in the DeLorean. Let's go into the what? Okay? So here's the national home prices and interest rates. Okay, so we have the home price index as the green one, right, that goes up. You can see it. Hopefully you guys and gals can see it. And then the Federal Reserve interest rate, right, which is in the orange color. Okay, and this one, and I have the other part kind of blocked off. Now, the source from this is the Irrational Exuberance book. Okay, so if we start off from the 2000, okay, what happened? Home prices went up, skyrocketed right after the dot-com bust, right? As that was going on. But as that was coming on, guess what? Interest rates were falling. Right? Interest rates were falling. But look at this. Where did we see the hockey stick price? Right here, right smack of between 2000 and 2005. Right? Interest rate starts going up. And then, boom, it still popped up. And if you started during that time, you guys and gals remember this, I started in 2004, right? I'm just like, whoa, you know, right? So I'm catching the tail end of all this boom stuff. And then, obviously, the real estate prices came crashing down, right? New Century went under. I don't know if you guys remember the history of the New Century, right? That was scary times for me personally. And then interest rate had to come down, all right? Now, let's take a look at some couple other stuff, right? From right here, early 2000s, look at this one. Do you see this little pop pop right here? Okay, pop right here, and what? Interest rate right here, right? This pop section right here. Let me erase this. All right, and oopsie. And then guess what? Real estate prices went down a little bit. You see that? Now, if we delete the whole chart, and you can see the whole chart, guess what? We can go back into the late 60s, and guess what? Interest rate was going up, and then what? Real estate prices stayed flat. Right now, it did come down a little bit in the early 70s. Okay, but what happened? From the mid-70s to what? Interest rate went up all the way into the 80s. All right? And during this era, it was we had Jimmy Carter, right? Richard Dick Nixon, Federal Reserve Chairman was what? Paul Volcker at that time, okay? And you can see here, real estate prices went up as well. Right? Now, this is United States. So if you're in Canada, I'm sorry about this, okay? And if you're in Canada, I don't know why. Typically, I don't have too many Canadians in here, right? So it's a little bit different, right? So if you're crafting a sales pitch, and when someone says, and they're a buyer, and they're like, oh my gosh, as interest rate goes up, real estate prices does what? Right? I will typically use the history, and I tell my guys to use the history and storyline of the most recent boom and bust, which is right here. Right? This section. This is the story that we tell. Yeah, do you remember the dot-com bubble? I don't know if you remember that or not, you know, especially if you're talking to millennials or something like that, right? Because they like to Google stuff all the time, right? They are like Google generation, like, hey, you know, so they Google stuff, so you got to have good with it. Hey, yeah, you can Google it. Remember the dot-com bubble? They go to Wikipedia or whatever, right? Yeah, remember stock market was at an all-time high, and then the stock market came crashing down, and guess what? All that money went, I don't know, it went into the real estate. And at that time, interest rate had to come down because we're in a little hiccup recession. But immediately, that money went into real estate, and guess what? Real estate skyrocketed in prices. Now, it didn't skyrocket forever, like you know, right? Like we had the crash. So, you know, we can never predict the future, but if you had to be a betting man, what would you think the interest rate did from the early 2000s? Well, I don't know. Well, it went down a little bit and then went back up, and real estate prices skyrocketed. right? These are some of the conversations you can have when it comes to creating rebuttals, right? So again, let's talk about this. Pop quiz time, right? What would the rebuttal for a buyer be, right? When they say, I'll wait for prices to go down. Type that in the actual chat box. And we'll go into case studies. All right, there's some little delay here. All right, so here it is. All right, from the late mid to late 90s, interest rate went up, but did you know real estate values went up? Right, you can say that, and then you can tell the story. Right, next one. Not sure if I can afford it now. Maybe we can try to figure out how we can get you into a dream home because from the mid to late 90s, interest rate went up, but did you know real estate value went up? Right? And if we talk about, hey, I don't want to pay that much in interest rate, did you know you can deduct your interest from your taxes? So if interest rate does go up, you can deduct it. But did you know from the mid to late 90s, interest rate went up, did you know that real estate value, guess what, went up? Right? And if they're concerned about interest rate, you can always tell them, hey, if you're locking it in, you can always refinance later. Okay? So you have to have these rebuttals and know history based on the other side, right? Now, is most individual going to ask you this question? No. Right? Unless they're very sophisticated or they're older people, right? Like if they're in the late Gen X's and or baby boomers, right? They remember those times. So you have to send them back into the past to make them remember what happened. Hey, do you remember the 70s when the interest rates were in the teens? Right? We heard Renee, like in the 80s, he said, hey, you know what? Yeah, you know, the interest rate was higher, but real estate prices went up. Right? So you have to know who you're talking to. Okay, as we're doing this. And remember earlier I talked about how the different parts of history is where the storyline that you want to tell. So today I'm just strictly doing kind of the buyer side, right, which is typically we talk about in the most recent cycle right here. Right? This is where we talk about. All right? This is what we talk about for the buyer side. Now, for the seller side, in my local marketplace, because of the homeowners that own property and currently that are selling now that we're seeing, is that we like to talk about this pocket right here for sellers. Okay? From the mid-70s to the mid-80s, pretty much. All right? We like to talk about that. Okay? That. Now, there is another section here where, remember what Renee was talking about in the 80s, right? He might have been talking about this section right here, too. Okay? But regardless of what it is, I tell individuals when you're telling these stories, right, you don't really give the year, right? You just simply talk about mid to early 90s or whatever it is, because then they're going to remember what they were doing at that time. And you're having an emotional conversation. Just same thing as, hey, you know, you're talking to an older person, and or let's just say a mid to late Gen X, right? And we're talking about they're possibly thinking about buying or selling their current home and buying, right? Then I can have a conversation with them about talking about what? 9/11. Because everyone, mostly, if you're in the United States, you remember what happened on September 11th, 2001, or where you were at. Right? Do you remember? Yeah, so as interest rate goes up, so what do you think is the real estate price is going to do? Hey, you know what? I don't really know because I don't have a crystal ball, and anyone that can tell you that they have a crystal ball is I think is full of it. But let me ask you this. Do you remember September 11th, 2001? Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, do you remember what happened afterwards? And then you let him talk, right? And and then he says, yeah, but the economy at that time, we went into a little dip of recession. And that was right after the dot-com bubble busted too, simultaneously as that happened. And then guess what happened? All that money came into real estate. And home prices skyrocketed from the mid-2000s to almost towards the late 2000s. Now, I don't know what the future is going to do, but I can tell you this, interest rate is not 100% always true. As interest rate goes up, real estate prices doesn't come down. Right? So as you have these conversations, it becomes a lot easier to position yourself as a trusted advisor, basically instead of saying the same old song and dance. Now, if they are more of the older baby boomers that have like rental properties and things like that, and they bought in like the 70s and stuff like that, right? Then I like to tend to, as I said, like to use this era a little bit more. because it's about nostalgia. All right? So hopefully that makes sense. So any questions on that? Let me know in the chat box. Because we're going to go into and we're going to cover this particular case study again, and I want to talk about this particular case study. And I forgot, I didn't do this earlier. Let's do a quick recap of people who have gotten, have you guys ran their first campaigns, what's been going on? Let's do a quick recap of what's been happening. Let me know in the chat box. I should have done this actually when we first started. I did talk to Rima earlier this week, and hopefully, I was wishing she was on, but I don't see her on, so it would have been super cool. So again, who has run their first campaign and or multiple campaigns? And let me know. Actually, where's Steven at? Hold on, Steven, you're supposed to be running a campaign, I think. Steven, you're muted on your side.
Hi.
All right, say hi to everyone, Steven.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so Steven, did you end up running that other campaign that we talked about?
I ran the campaign language that you sent to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've run it twice.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten one appointment because it was a campaign offering a cash buyer for a particular area. And so got inside the house and probably going to turn that into a buy-side appointment.
So hold on. Let me back up, Stephen. Okay, so hold on. So you ran the campaign and then positioned that one as a cash buyer. You dropped the message, and then how many messages did you hit first off? Like, what was the numbers?
On that one, it was, I think, 291 addresses.
Okay, 291 addresses. Okay, and then do you know how many calls that you got back?
I got 3 back.
3, okay. 3, okay. Now, how are you setting it up? Are you setting it up where you answer the phone yourself, or are you letting it go to voice message and leaving a message?
I'm letting it go to voice message.
Gotcha, okay. So when you say 3, those are the 3 people who left the message?
Right.
Gotcha, okay. Now, do you know how many physically people called in terms of numbers?
The total number of numbers was around 2,000.
Okay, so that's the total number of, okay, that's what you dropped, 2,000 then.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how many calls came in? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How many calls?
I got a lot of texts.
You got a lot of texts, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got a lot of texts that's not interested.
Yeah.
But of the positive responses were only 3.
Gotcha, okay. And then out of the 3, you went on one appointment?
I had actually one of them come as a buyer to my office. And then another one, I went to his appointment at his house, and it was kind of an interesting conversation because he's only lived in the house 2 years, and it's totally redone. And he said basically that they enjoyed the project so much they want to do another one. So
he wants to get
we're going to turn it into a buyer appointment because he doesn't want to sell it until he's got his next project.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So as in he wants to buy it and then live in it, and then the current one, is he going to sell it or keep it?
Yeah, he's going to sell the current one.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's great, actually. Okay. So how confident that you're going to be able to find him something?
Oh, he's in a price point that he can afford something.
Yeah, right? Okay, so that's good.
And he's gonna, with the amount of work that he did on his, he's gonna probably take a $400,000 profit in a couple of years. So he's looking to scale up. Is basically what he's trying to do, I think.
Gotcha. Now, what's his occupation?
I'm sure he's an engineer or finance professional, one of the two, at a tech company.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, that's good. Now, so that appointment, so that's different than the buyer that came to the office then, or is that the same person?
No, it's a different one.
Okay, so you called for saying, hey, it's a seller, but then the buyer came to the office, and what are they looking for?
Well, the conversation with him went with, well, he'd like to see what his house is worth, but his he really wants to get cash flow is really what he's going for. So I thought that it was going to be an interest for selling that property, but I had to hook him with other opportunities for cash flow. And so I've got a really good opportunity for cash flow actually in Tennessee. So hooked him with that. He came in. We talked about that. He's talking to my partner in Tennessee, but he made it pretty adamant during the appointment that you buy a real estate and you hold it, you never sell it.
Yeah, the infamous, hey, they ain't making no more land anymore, right? So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but he has, $250,000, $300,000 in cash that he could reallocate to purchasing some cash flow property.
Okay. So good. So I'm guessing the person that you sent in Tennessee, it's someone that you've done business with, or it's a referral from someone. And is that going to generate some income with that referral for you?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's great.
It won't be a lot, but it's something.
Yeah, it's something, right? Yeah. So you're maximizing. That's good. Okay. And then he can tell his friends, and they can go through and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, that's good.
Right.
Okay.
And then I did another campaign in another area. And following the Jeff Coga "Get the Damn Thing Out" formula.
That's good. I don't like saying it like that, but okay. As long as you got it out.
I made the mistake of actually having the wrong city in the script. So got all my Google Voice just blew up with texts and voicemails back that, hey, I don't know what property you're talking about. But nevertheless, got one appointment out of that. Another one told me that they went on the market today. A third one told me that they were an agent just putting their house on the market. So I was trying to match up my buyer with that one of those other properties.
Gotcha.
But I haven't held that appointment yet. We've had some scheduling difficulties back and forth, but there is an appointment.
How solid do you think that appointment's going to be?
I think that it's probably going to be a longer term play on maybe in the spring or something. Okay.
Well, that's still good. Okay. Now, the one that went on the market just recently, is that the one that they just listed with someone else and they're like, oh, we already had someone?
It actually was, when I looked it up, it was 0 days on market. So it had just gone on that afternoon.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So if you possibly maybe ran that campaign in that pocket a couple of weeks earlier, maybe you had a shot, right, before they did
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, that's okay. And then the one that was the agent that said, hey, I'm going to pop it up on the market myself. That's the one that you're trying to find a buyer for?
Yeah, I mean, I had a buyer in that area, but my buyer's too picky on what they want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. So, but one thing, Stephen, is I know I say that, hey, ready, fire, aim, right? But remember, did you send a test campaign to yourself first before you launched it?
That's what I got to do.
Right? So it's like anything else when you do like an email blast too, right? It's just like, hey, you always send it to yourself, and here's the rule of thumb for that, okay? Is you measure twice, cut once, right? That carpenter's rule, right? So send a test message twice. Right, just so you know that, hey, you're dropping, because again, the worst thing to do is that you're doing within one city, the city you're saying, and then you drop it in a completely different, and then you get all these blowback of people like all confused and like what's happening, even though yes, you had one appointment, but also
I had a number of conversations with people, and they were like, oh, well, we knew what you meant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay. So
because it's the city next door. So they're like, oh, yeah, you must have just said the wrong thing. So it actually created some conversations with people.
Really? Okay. So maybe that's a campaign you test again where you
test it.
Say a wrong city. I don't know, So, okay. Do you have another campaign that's set up that you're going to be sending out?
Not right now. Not yet.
Okay. Well, hopefully, you have these and start converting these and stuff like that. So that's good. All right. Well, anything else, Stephen, I can help you out with since I got you here? We're talking?
Not right now.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for the feedback here. I'm going to go ahead and mute you there. All right. So, usually I do this in the beginning. I totally forgot about that, so I apologize. But as I said earlier, right, it's about speed, okay? But also at the same time, right, when you send out these campaigns, test it out, please, okay? All right? But, hey, Even though he did send it on the wrong one, he said he had more conversations, right? So again, it works, ladies and gentlemen, all right, as if you do it. All right, so let me see here. Any other feedback questions before we get into the next one, the case study here, because I'm going to pull this up. And let me see here if we got some couple other people in here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mute this. All right, cool. So let me go ahead and pull up the actual call, and I'm going to play for you guys and gals. All right? And this one's really important, especially for as you're listening to this call, okay? I played this call before, but I'm going to have you listen to it again. All right? Now, the reason being is it's how you craft your sales message and your rebuttals after you keep on hearing the same message over and over and over again, all right? So like in my case, I'm in Southern California, specifically here, we market in the Los Angeles area and things like that, right? So we run into constantly this particular thing where people are like, hey, there's a stadium going to be built, right? Stadium going to be built. Hey, there's gentrification going on, so I'll probably hold off, right? Like we run into constantly this question. And I get it because guess what? That's probably what the salespeople on the buyer side is telling what buyers. Like, hey, you should go in here and buy this place because a stadium's going to be built, so the prices are going to keep on going up, right? That's what they're telling the buyers. But that can sometimes go into what? The homeowners who live there in that particular area, right? Like, I don't know if there's a certain company coming in, right? There's just like, oh my gosh, a big corporation's coming in, like Amazon's coming to my city. Oh my gosh, home prices are going to skyrocket, right? And people start believing that and start listening to that. Why? Is because the media is going to go ahead and slam the homeowners or even buyers about that message. Okay? And when they keep on hearing that same message over and over again, right, it will go ahead and literally brainwash them to believing that is the absolute truth. All right? And I'm a firm believer that, that if you're a salesperson, if you have a conversation on the other direction, you're going to be able to have a what? Better relationship and trust and bond versus someone else that only talks one direction, in my opinion, okay? So let me play this particular one, and as we play this, please listen, pay attention, grade the call, and say, hey, from score of 1 to 10 on this particular call, and then put something that you liked, something that you didn't like, okay, or whatever you hear on this particular call as I play this call for you guys and gals, all right? So let's go ahead and play this call, all right?
Hello? Hi, my name is calling me something about selling property.
Yeah, I was just calling to see.
First thing I want to know, how did you get my number?
Huh?
How did you get my number?
Wait, so did you have any interest in selling or no?
But I would like to know, how did you get my number? Because I didn't get that. Huh?
Public record?
Public records.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was your reason for calling me? To see if I was interested in selling?
Yeah, because we are at the peak of the real estate market again.
And so what is the peak of the real estate market in my area?
Well, I mean, that varies right on the condition of your property and, what you're getting at rent and, all that other stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I had thought about it, but I'm not for sure if that's what I want to do yet.
Okay, well, I mean, if you did decide to sell, I mean, do you know already where would you move to next?
No, I would have to be interested in buying another property if I decide to sell.
Where at? Where would you want to live in?
I wouldn't want to live in the heart of LA. I would want to live on kind of like on the outskirts, but I wouldn't want to live way out, like an hour drive or whatever, because I'm still working.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, LA is going through the gentrification right now, so property values right now are at the peak. I mean, the last time The last time we had values like this was 2007, which was the peak back then.
Mm-hmm. So it's just really high, right?
Very, very high right now. That's why a lot of my sellers are selling it.
Right. So if I was to go buy something else, that means that property is going to be even higher, and my note is going to be even higher. Am I correct?
Well, not necessarily, because if you sell your property for top dollar, and even if you buy another property, you'd probably be putting so much money down where your loan amount will be extremely low. So even if the market would have changed, one, you'll be able to find something that you want to live into, and two, you'd be putting so much money down because you're able to sell for top dollar, so that way your loan amount will be very low.
Oh, okay. And what real estate are you?
Berkshire Hathaway.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I was just asking. I have had some consideration of that because,
how soon were you going to sell?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm trying to make a decision. I'm getting close to retirement. I have like 4 years of retirement. And so I really actually is undecided of what I want to do.
Okay. Well, if you want, I'm driving right now, but if you want to text me your property address, since I don't have it in front of my computer, I can let you know what your property is worth, and maybe that will help you decide, what you want to do.
Okay. Okay. You want me to?
Is this your cell phone number right here?
Yeah, this is my cell phone number. Yeah.
Okay. I'll text you my info, my direct line and stuff, and
Okay, but right now my yard is not up in good shape. Does that have anything to do with it?
You what?
My yard haven't been cut or anything like that, and it's brown. I haven't been watering it.
That's fine.
Okay. I'll text it to you and see what you say about it.
Yeah, because tons and tons of people are selling, because I'm sure you know that, we are at the peak of the market right now. The last time we had values like this was 2007, and a lot of people wish they would have sold.
I know the values are even going to go higher because of the stadium that they're going to build over there on Century Boulevard, and I'm not that far from there.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of people, think that as well. But even if the stadium is built, but if the market takes a correction or a crash, and regardless of the stadium, no matter what's built, no one can control the market and what this crazy president is going to do.
But I just wanted to sell my house, and because I do owe some defer on my house because I got trapped up in the state loans. How when they had that crash market, I had got trapped.
That's the prime.
So my property has been mugged, and I wouldn't want to sell my house and get you get your issue, the tax that they issue, and I get $20,000 out of my home because I put a lot of money in this home.
Right, exactly. So, my goal is to make sure.
A lot of people. I don't want to leave out with $20,000, $30,000, or what I put
you own your property.
Huh?
You own your property.
I'm really not quite for sure because some of it's been deferred at the time. So
okay.
Right. So the firm will have to be paid off because they say if I refinance or sell it, I would have to pay back. I was going to end up paying it little by little anyway.
Right. So, everything will get paid through closing. You wouldn't have to pay anything to anyone up front. So, but I'll figure out if you can tell me exactly how much you owe. I'll tell you how much you walk away with, depending on what your property is. At that point, we can decide, Well, first, how much the property is worth. Exactly. how much the deposit is and how much the let me subtract those two and see, what's left over for you.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
If I text me the property address, we'll take it.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, so grade this call on a scale of 1 to 10. All right, now for the folks who said, I've listened to this one before, I'm playing it again on the purpose because this call I use for training purposes because there are so many things that are right, but also at the same time, there are so many things that can be done so much better. All right, so grade this call on a scale of 1 to 10. What would you grade our good friend here on this particular call? Right? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the best. What would you grade it? And what are some of the stuff that he did right, he did wrong, okay? We did get, oh, there's a delay. Here it is. Pretty low energy. Yeah, a little bit, but really he is mirroring the other side, right? Like, first off, she's very defensive, right? Like, how do you get my number, right? Okay, and he goes, are you looking to sell, right? All right, and Steven said 2, okay. I think your score went down from last time you heard it, so you probably picked up things that he could have done much better, okay? Now, on this particular call, so many things, all right, that he left it up for the actual seller to, do, right? Number one thing, okay, is as I've talked about this, if you listen, she is an older lady. Number one, older lady, you can just tell, okay? And the portion that I really, really got kind of borderline upset on is to not have a conversation about retirement on that phone. Because you can hear it in the seller's voice that she's trying to do something for retirement, right? Because she's older. And if we know anything about what's going on in this country, there are tons and tons of people in this country, baby boomers and things like that. They're real estate rich, but cash poor. I'll say it again. They're real estate rich, but cash poor. Okay, meaning that they own real estate, especially California, because we have something called Prop 13, right? And this is something that you should know about your local marketplace on what's happening, right? Is that they don't tend to sell because property taxes are so low. Versus if you're like in Texas and things like that, right? Property taxes are much higher and it goes up as property value goes up. We're capped off on property taxes here, right? So people don't usually sell their real estate, okay? But they have a house, but they don't have money in retirement. Okay, now it's not a across the board true statement for everyone, right? Depending on what marketplace that you're in, but people in this particular marketplace that we're going after, I know that's pretty much the majority, right? Where's the 80-20? So a lot of the older folks in this particular zip code in this city that we're going after, I know they fall under that category. So when he's having this conversation and you hear that on the other side about someone concerned about retirement, you got to immediately go in there and says, oh, okay, are you planning to retire in the next couple of years? You already know that they're going to say yes. Yeah, great. When? Okay, and if you know anything about retirement and how a certain retirement program works, right, 59.5 is kind of the magical number, right, where you can tap into kind of retirement programs and retirement income. All right, so you have to truly, truly have that conversation because now you're actually taking away that conversation from just being a salesperson about, hey, I'm going to help you sell your house for top dollar type of conversation to being able to, hey, having her forward paced and actually seeing in the future. Oh, great. So you're seeing what the stadium price is going to go up. Okay. So are you planning to, at that time, then sell the property and then being able to use that for retirement? Okay, good. Right? So what does that number look like that you want to have? Right? And you can at least have that kind of conversation. So, well, immediately when this happened, right, I resent a rebuttal for this because she's bringing up the actual stadium, right? And I talked about this. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to help each and every one of you craft a certain rebuttals right on here, whoever that wants to be in the hot seat, and I'm going to help you craft this, right? Because the constant message I heard locally here is because the stadium is going to be built, the sellers didn't want to sell. Okay, it was easy to convince a buyer to want to buy in that pocket because it's just like, hey, by the way, they're building a stadium here and they're coming to, hey, the Olympics are coming to Los Angeles, right? So you can get a buyer super excited about it and they'll actually buy. All right. But on the seller side, they didn't, they're using that and not want to sell because they want to simply sit. So then the question continuously came up. So I came up with a rebuttal, crafted a message, and sent it over to my sales team that are actually going after this, right? And says, hey, you need to do this, right? So what I tend to do is when we come up with the rebuttals is we want to come up with storylines, okay? I'm not telling you to lie, okay? Absolutely not. If you do, I'm going to reach through this microphone. I'm going to shake you by the lapel, all right? Okay? I'm not telling you to do that, all right? What I'm telling you is to tell stories because inherently when you say things like, hey, let me tell you a quick story. We all tend to listen. All right, let me tell you a story. We all tend to listen. Now, why is that? Is because we're programmed as human beings. Okay? Kind of caveman days, right? I know this sounds kind of weird, right? But what we did is, before we learned how to write, we would tell stories, and those stories will get passed on and passed on and passed on. Same thing as your mom and dad, when you were little, right? They tell you stories and stuff like that, right? So again, people learn from stories. They don't really learn from facts. Okay, so you have to get really good at crafting these to explain your positioning, right? And then ultimately let the seller or buyer decide which way you want to do. So this was when the objection, when it says, hey, value is going to go up because of a stadium, right? And I first crafted one that says, hey, let me tell you a quick story. Okay, two of my friends and investors in Arizona, and we tied it into a different stadium that was being built, okay, on the last boom cycle. The last boom cycle. So we tied it into the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, and we would say, hey, do you know where the Arizona Cardinals play? They're the Major League Baseball team. They play on the MLB. And if they say yeah or no, it doesn't really matter. And it says, do you know that their stadium called the University of Phoenix Stadium was built in 2006, 2007? Right at the peak of the last real estate market. And homes around that stadium was actually at the peak of $300,000 while the stadium was being completed. Right? And then guess what happened for the folks that didn't sell and they held on to the property? Well, a couple of years later, after the frenzy went away, hey, homes in that area was worth $300,000, but because of the frenzy, hey, it went down to $100,000. Right? And I have right on the screen, it says punchline, and it says, hey, I'm sure you know who Warren Buffett is, and he considered one of the smartest investor and wisest investor ever. He says majority is always wrong, and those folks who waited for the Cardinal Stadium to be built lost $200,000 in equity. And the wise home seller walked away with $200,000 in their bank. Right? And this isn't just true for the Cardinal stadiums. Do you know who the Colts are? Right? If they're, obviously, you got to know your audience, right? Who you're talking to, that kind of stuff, right? Okay. All right. So again, once I heard that call, I re-forward this message and says, hey man, you gotta say this, right? Tell the story, right? The stadium will go up and say, hey, do you know who the Arizona Cardinals are or maybe the Indianapolis Colts? Right? These stadiums were built at the peak of the real estate market. In Arizona, the savvy homeowners sold their stadium before the stadium was built. And the one that didn't, home values went up to over $300,000, but it came back to $100,000. And then you say, hey, look, I'm sure you'll agree, no one can really predict the future, but all we know is history repeats itself. If you lived in Arizona, knowing what you know now from that story, would you have rather had $200,000 in the bank and in your hand versus a few years later, you had nothing? All right? And clearly, you have to know your audience when you say this, right? Especially, that's why you have to have that retirement conversation ahead of time. Right? So now we're doing a lot of adjustments on this pitch. If they're closer to baby boomers, Gen X's, right? We're having conversations about, hey, the actual peak in the what? Stock market. Stock market is all-time high currently right now. So many of our what? Clients are selling their property and they're in cash position. So that way they can take advantage of the equities market. Because if you have to be a betting man or a woman, which one do you think that will correct first? The stock market, or do you think that it's going to be the real estate? Right? And if they're real estate, more geared to real estate, they'll say real estate or stock. It doesn't really matter. We're trying to, the stock market will correct much faster. Why? Is it because it's not, it's literally click, 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 and you can sell stuff, right? Versus real estate, it's a tangible asset, right? So it's a little bit harder for the market to correct, like literally in a quarter. Okay? So When we have that conversation, then we says, hey, now imagine, hey, you have 500,000 or 200,000 when they sell the house. You have that in the bank, and imagine if you can go back to 2008. Where would you have placed that money? Thinking about retirement. Then they'll say either, hey, the stock market, or they'll say, hey, the real estate, right? Okay, but we want to get into that conversation. Okay, so my question now is kind of, I'm opening into who wants to be in the hot seat. This hot seat time, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know what's happening in your local marketplace. We'd love to help you craft some rebuttals on things that you're hearing over and over, and hopefully maybe I can help you create somewhere. I'll give you some better answers on how you can convert these sellers and different conversations you're having over in your local marketplace. So who wants to be in the hot seat? Let me know. So matter of fact, hold on here. I just got a call. Is it okay I can take this call right now? It's from hold on. Dante. Hold on. Dante, I'm on a live training. Can I put you on a speaker and you can tell me what's going on? All right, so Dante is working on some deals. Dante, say hi to everyone.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so tell me what you just said right now.
Well, just got the loan docs in to escrow, all contingencies removed on both our deals, and we are just waiting for loan docs to be signed, funding, and recorded.
Gotcha. Now, this is the one with the call that we did. What was the price on this? It was $1 million something, right?
It was $1.2 million. We listed at $1.2 million, and we came in with an offer at $1.15 million, not too long after coming to list. So
yeah.
It was a good deal.
Yeah, it was a great deal. Okay. Any other good news or something else?
Other than that, we're good to go with those two.
Okay, cool. I will call you after this because there's something else I want to talk to you about. But yeah. Thanks, Dante. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, sorry about that. Like literally, if you think that it says, "Is this Orcus?" No, it's not. It's like literally, like hey, you know how real estate is, right? Like as stuff happens, you call and people call you and give you updates, So, anyways, so that's what's going on. So hot seat. Who wants to be in the hot seat? Yeah, so this is a fourplex. This is Frank who asked what was the deals. Yeah, so it's a fourplex that we got, and yeah, it's from the campaign, the DBC campaign, and we went out there, put the package together, and he got the listing on it, At first, I was trying to buy it, but then it just didn't make sense to buy it because they want top dollars, so it didn't work. We do have another 5 units as well that's coming up at $1.6 million as well that we're putting together. He just put the presentation and package together as well, and they liked it, so we're going to hopefully get that, keep our fingers crossed. So again, it works just as long as you keep on doing the campaign, right? And people can understand and you understand. If in the beginning, if you're doing it yourself, do it yourself, right? Take the calls, work on them. But then as you start doing it, right, bring on people on your team that can handle that specific things. Like I have multiple acquisition people who does this stuff and runs the campaign for me, and it's fun, right? Okay. And again, don't delegate it if you haven't done the campaign yourself. That's a no-no. At least take it, see the power of that, so that way you can get your brain to start, starts working, and then you can start figuring out how to do it, right? So, yeah. So again, who wants to be in the hot seat? Otherwise, I'm going to start coming down the list of if you need some help, what are some, or maybe to help you out, what are some of the common objections that you're running into, the wall that you're running into when you talk to sellers? All right. I wish Rima was here so I can have a conversation with her. I was talking to her about one thing this past week. All right. So where's she at? Is she in here? I don't think she might be on her appointment. Yeah. So here, let me tell you a conversation. Okay. So I was in conversation with Rima earlier this week, right? And she came back from a listing appointment, and she got a listing. Okay, it was like 500,000 or something like that. Okay, not huge, not big. Depending on where you're at, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, is that good? Is that bad? Right? But I think it's darn good. Now, this particular listing. How she got it was doing the DBC, right? The direct bypass communication marketing, and the list that she hit is a foreclosure list. She hit a NOD NTS, okay, a foreclosure list that she got the data appended. Now, why did she hit that list? First off, okay, number one, Okay, all right. Why did she hit this list? Is because, number one, she has, I'm going to put EXP, okay? Okay? She has experience in doing short sales, number one. Right? Because that's what she told me, right? She said, hey, when I started, I did a lot of short sales, especially in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. So I have a lot of experience, right? But what happened with the folks who did short sales, okay? All right? And then even REOs during that time. As the market changed and those things kind of dried up, right? Guess what happens? Now you're working with traditional sellers and you can't do the same pitch, okay? So, but now we have the ability to get what? Phone numbers instead of door knocking or direct mail versus anyone else. So I was just like, look, I don't think no one else is doing this in your marketplace. So why don't you append the actual foreclosures, the NOT and NTSs, and let's run a campaign for these foreclosures, right? So she ran it. And she dropped it. I think it was like 500 she did or something like that, right? And calls came in. She went on, I don't know the exact number of calls, but she did go on one appointment and met the seller and got a contract for a short sale. All right. Now, when she texted me this, okay, let me read the text message, and this is what she said. Let me see here. Where is it? Let me read this to you so you get an idea. Where is it? Where are you at? I should have it. Okay. It says, Jeff, do you have any useful tips for the conversations with the people in the foreclosure campaign? If you have a couple of minutes to talk to me through this, I would appreciate it. Right? That's what she said. All right? Do you have any useful tips for conversation with people in the foreclosure campaign? If you have a couple of minutes to talk to me through this, I would appreciate it. Okay? Now, when I called her, right, I said, hey, there are two options. And I'll ask you again. What are the two options to make this campaign or to get better results? Right? So she did 500 one-on-one appointment, got a listing. All right? So again, this is a question for you guys. Come on, I'm just trying to see if you're paying attention. What is a couple ways that she can do to get more results? Anyone? Don't be shy. All right, so can you explain the scenario again? Okay, so if you're paying, let me explain, okay? So again, she did what? Hold on, let me delete this. All right, I'm going to start going down the list and making sure that you guys and gals are paying attention, okay? So number one, she did a what? I'm going to put 4, okay? So it's a foreclosure, okay? And then she did the what? DBC, right? Direct bypass communication. And the results were one appointment, and she got a /1 listing, right? Okay? So the question is, she basically says, hey, and I'll read the question again. Jeff, do you have any useful tips for the conversation with the people in the foreclosure campaign? If you have a couple of minutes to talk to me through this, I would appreciate it. Okay? Great question, Kelly. Kelly asked how was it set up. In her case, she answered the calls herself. She answered the calls herself. She didn't send it to voicemail. She answered the calls herself. All right? So again, I'll say it again. What can you do? Let me ask I'm going to start going down the list. What about Renee? I'm going to ask Renee. How about that? Renee, you there? Renee? Hello? Did I lose you, Renee? Renee? Hello, Renee? I don't know. Okay, so maybe he's not there. What about Cheryl? How about that? Cheryl, you there? Cheryl?
Hi. I have a really bad cold and I can't even talk.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Hopefully, I'm gonna mute you there. Cheryl, please get better, okay? All right, so sorry about that. Let me see here. Let me go down the list here. All right, what about let me see here. Sue. What about Sue? Sue, you there? Sue? All right, so I'm going to meet you there. Okay, not sure. What about a good friend, Nancy, here? Nancy, are you there?
I'm here.
Say hi to everyone, Nancy.
Hi, everyone.
All right, Nancy. So my question was, she ran a foreclosure campaign, did the DBC, and then she got one listing out of this. And her question is, how can I make this better, pretty much? And what would your response be? What would you do if you were in her shoes?
Follow up or repeat the campaign.
Right? Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty simple. Okay. So, by the way, Nancy, have you ran your campaign yet?
No, I have to get my new voice message going.
Come on, Nancy.
Okay.
Going. Hey, by the way, Nancy, I want to thank you because remember the thing about my back, right? So I've been doing that a lot of stuff, and it's been helping really, really good. So
good for you. Keep repeating it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nancy. All right. So you heard the answer, right? The answer is quite simple. You repeat it. Okay. So how I explained to her was this: is that she's taking the calls, and I said, look, all right, you're trained in a way. Because, number one, I can give you kind of, rebuttals and pitches and, storylines that you can use to convert better, right? But remember, she's been doing short sales since 2008 to 2012, right? So it's not like she's brand spanking new and it's not like she doesn't know how to talk to these people. So even though I've done tons and tons of short sale, right? Like at one time we were managing like over 50 in the pipeline and stuff like that. I explained to her and I said, look, whatever I can craft a rebuttal for. I said your actual increase is going to be what? Maybe about a 10%, 20%. It's not an exponential type of growth that you're going to get in the ROI. Not to say you can't get better at your actual pitch, right? And how you answer. But I said the other way to look at this, because we're so conditioned to cherish every call, every inbound calls, right? Because a lot of times we don't know how to market, right? So now we know how to generate inbound calls on demand. I said, hey, like Nancy said, run another campaign, right? So she's working on getting another more data and says, hey, you know what? I want to do this. Because at the grand scheme of things, right? Doing like 500 records and then getting one listing that can do $500,000. In her case, it'll be probably 3%. That's $15,000, right? That's amazing to me. Okay? So is to take that and then just rotate it, right? Just rotate your campaign and rotate it, right? And you have to do that. All right, especially in the beginning as you're starting to build your pipeline, right? The future deals, right? And you keep on doing that over and over, right? Then the gap starts filling in, right? Like I think kind of like Steven was saying, hey, one is going to be until later on, maybe a couple months and stuff like that, right? But seemed like it was solid, had a buyer as well, right? So again, you just want to rotate those campaigns over and over because look, once you append the data and you have the cell phone, people do not change their cell phone number unless they want to hide, right? Unless they want to hide. They do not change that, right? So my recommendation is to keep on running it, and that's what I told her. And she said, I never thought about it that way, Jeff. Let me go ahead and do it again, right? So again, do it. If it works, don't change too much of it, right? Keep on doing it, right? Okay? So again, let me take a sip of water here. Let's go to Q&A. I'm going to open up the Q&A. So what questions do you guys and gals have? Naya's texting me actually. Hold on. Let's see if I call her. Let's see if she answers. See, this is what I love. The folks that are on here, right? Like we had Cheryl who was sick that's on here, and then I don't know where Naya is at, but hold on, let's see. Let's call her. And maybe she can. Hey, Naya, you're live on the training here, but I figured I'd just call you because you're texting me some stuff. So wanted to kind of touch base with you, see how's the campaign? Did you close that escrow?
So my buyer who is in escrow is still in escrow. We have a little longer to go on the investigation.
Okay.
Contingencies. And yes, thank you. Actually, I turned out I had to not be able to be in front of my computer, so I put on the audio version on my phone, and I've been listening to you the whole time. And I've been walking in and out of a couple places, and my earbud in, and I've been listening to the call the whole time.
Okay.
But I couldn't do the Q&A because I wasn't in front of the computer. That's why I was texting you.
No, that's fine. I was just trying to touch bases because I know you had a couple deals you're working on, so I always want to hear, like, hey, what's some updates, what's been going on, anything I can help you out with since, I got you on the phone.
Right. I don't like, I sent out a very small test campaign of 50. I didn't get any response on it, but I feel like I got the structure right. So I feel like, woohoo, I went through one.
Yeah.
I still don't like my voice on the, I don't dislike my voice on audio. I just don't like my voice off that audio.
Okay, so hold on. Let's say this, okay? So anyone else, if you're hearing Naya's voice, what do you guys and gals think about her voice, ladies and gentlemen? It says sounds fine. I see Kelly says sounds fine. It's okay. Why? What's wrong with that? So again, that's what they're saying. All right. So I'm just okay, right? Like Steve said, okay, that's fine. Sounds very assertive, confidence. Okay, there we go. So you got what? You only did 50, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Did you get any response? What happened?
I got the other guy who said about texting.
Uh-huh.
I got 2 texts back saying not interested.
Gotcha.
Actually, one said not interested right now.
Okay.
And I made a phone call and didn't get back through. I couldn't get back through, and I'm going to call that person again.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I 50 or so just wasn't generating enough, but I felt like it allowed me to sort of feel like I had completed the prototype,
Yeah. That's good.
So my goal is actually to send out, because I have a giant list, right?
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to start sending out much larger numbers.
Okay. That is a smart way to do it. So, okay. So any other feedback? Question?
I do have a question for you. So if I was to send out, because I'm going to handle the calls myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be able to handle the calls. And I'm kind of wondering, should I be setting these up as like every hour I send out some?
Yeah, so,
to a giant chunk?
So when you're probably starting off, you probably want to do maybe like 200 to 300 an hour.
Okay.
Okay, and this is where I'm talking about delivered, okay? Delivered, which is different than numbers, right? Because depending on the source of the number versus delivered could be different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so delivered you can handle if you're starting on maybe 200 to 300, okay? As you get better at it, then like my guys, we do it at every 20 minutes increments, and we do 300.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not telling you to go that route, but start off with that and then start hitting it and then see what happens, okay?
Great, that sounds good. I'm a real believer in walking before I run.
So
I like not to have to keep picking myself back up.
So it's fine. I'm gonna say try to run faster, but my philosophy. So so all right.
Yeah,
okay.
And I have been slowing it out this campaign, but thank you. Your support really made a difference.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and hang up there. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, so again, Q&A, please. Steven said you should wait 30 days at least, right? Yep, Steven, you should wait 30 days. That you want to wait 30 days on that. All right, so Nancy said, what is the rebuttal for? I'm not selling because where am I going to move to? Inventory is low and price is too high. We'll have to pay too much on capital gains taxes. Well, it depends, right? You got exemptions That's number one. And then typically when people says we'll have to pay too much on capital gains taxes, most of the time people don't talk to their accountants about it. So that's number one. And number two, where are they going to move? You can flip the script the other way too. It says, okay, well, then does that mean that you're never going to sell? Right? So again, it's a quirky place because that's kind of like a super loaded, right? Like there's so many parts to this. Hold on here. Where are you at, Nancy? Hold on. Let me unmute you. I think it's probably easy. Nancy, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. So repeat your rebuttal. Your question that you just asked me, or should I repeat?
Oh yeah, a lot of them will say, "I'm not going to sell because where am I going to move to? The inventory is too low. The prices are too high. I can't buy. And aside from that, I'm going to be paying too much on capital gains taxes." Okay. And sometimes they will say, "I think I'm just going to live here till I die." So I've had a lot of them say that.
Yeah. Now that's because of the quirky thing about California, right? The Prop 13. Yeah. So which is a constant battle that we're fighting against, right? Now, a couple things when it comes to property taxes, right? Is I do tell people, I say, hey, look, listen. It's just like you do understand that they have the people in Sacramento have been actually trying to get Prop 13 removed completely. I do say that. Like, and they'll be like, I didn't know that. And I'll send them some articles on how we try to put it on the ballot multiple times, right? Okay. And then it says, look, think about this. Do you know what the home ownership rate of California is? And, most people don't know. If they do know, they'll be like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot more renters than homeowners. Okay. So if you have to be a betting and, this ballot comes on, okay, and it actually makes it on the ballot, what do you think all these renters and millennial renters are going to do when they feel as though you are not paying your fair share of property taxes because of Prop 13 and you've owned this property since 1970 and you're paying $700 in property taxes? And while their rent is, they're paying $4,000 for 600 square feet, little shack, right? And at that time, now you can kind of pivot to a different conversation, right? So that's one part, right? Property taxes, kind of where to move. But again, the question you're asking is, I'm not selling because where am I going to move? That's one rebuttal. Inventory is low. That's another rebuttal, right? Price is too high. That's another rebuttal. And then we're paying too much in capital gains tax. That's another rebuttal, right? So literally it's four. And then it boils down to who are you talking to? When you say this, are you talking to more? I'm guessing, if I have to guess, you're talking to more baby boomers or late Gen X's?
Baby boomers.
Yeah, baby boomers, right? Okay. Yeah. So when you're having that conversation, then I like to tell my guys and gals to have questions about retirement.
Okay.
Right? We instantly go to retirement because then we can ask the question and be like, hey, so let me ask you this. When you retire, do you believe your income's going to go up or it's going to go down? Go down.
Go
What
down.
would you say? Go down?
Mhm.
What would you say? Go down?
It will go down.
Okay. I tell people, hey, unless you want your lifestyle to actually go down, most of the time it stays the same. Right? And that's where we have the conversation. And then from there we says, hey, and so a lot of our people that are going, they are moving out of state, outside of California. Where are your kids, by the way? Are they all in California or are they somewhere else? Right? Now you can kind of go into different conversations, right? If they are in kind of California, then you might want to have a conversation to moving outside of that location, maybe somewhere else, a couple miles away, right? So, but again, it's just it's a challenge when again it's just quirky in California because of that, and I know that because we run into this all day long. That's the issue, like if you're older and you're a baby boomer and you're sitting on that, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna die here in this property, right? Like I've heard that too, right? Like I'm never gonna sell. I'm gonna die in this property, like okay, and you can't really do anything, right? So, yeah, because you can't force people to sell, so, and it just have to say, okay, next one, right? Let's maybe pick a different campaign. All right.
Okay.
Is that kind of helping, Nancy? I'm not sure if I am or not.
We'll just say next.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for that. Okay. Now, and then the point I'm trying to get across, ladies and gentlemen, is this, right? Is that if you know how to data pen and you know how to data pen, you can get anyone's cell phone number, right? Then it shouldn't be an issue. You should go next, right? But also at the same time, just know that you cannot force sellers to sell, right? Just like you can't force a buyer to buy. Well, I guess I can't say seller to sell, because if they are like in foreclosure, kind of, sort of, someone's forcing them, right? So, but most of the time, that you just can't, especially in a good economy, right? And what's going on, right? People are feeling good, then, it's just, people aren't, So you got to go to the next one, right? Go to the next one. Like you've heard, I think a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about vacant lists, right? Appending that and going after that. People are seeing huge successes on that. Right? Even the foreclosure one we just talked about. I just talked about remote. People are having success on that, right? So again, it's just figuring out that list and then just hitting the list over and over. Obviously put a couple weeks in between, okay? But having multiple different lists, right? So it's that same concept, if you think about it, as people preach like on the internet leads, right, or email leads or whatever it is. People will say, hey, you got to segment your sphere of influence or segment your leads, right? They'll say, hey, you got to tag them, you got to do this. Yes, you can do that, and or just go append the list, and then you have all the ones that for that particular thing. Right? We have a good friend out in Chicago. His market was, a little bit different than here, and he ended up going the completely opposite direction as he started to pen data for luxury buildings, right? To get buyers. So there's, high-rise towers like luxury, like apartment buildings. So he appended literally every single address in the building. All right, because remember, like most apartment buildings, what's different? Just the unit number, right? So it's really easy to figure out what the units are, and then from there you appended that, and then boom, drop the message in, say, hey, it's a perfect time to buy. All right. And a lot of these people are professionals, right? They have money, but they're living there because, they're like attorneys, doctors, that kind of stuff, right? So he's pivoted and changed the conversation from not just buying a principal residence, but also buying investment properties too, because there's tons of straight great deals in the Chicago area. All right. So again, you got to know your marketplace, and then you have to figure that out and craft your marketing campaign in that. So now, clearly, I can help you out as much as I can. So again, reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you have questions right now, type it in the chat box, and I can help you out as well. So I'm going to go for a couple more minutes on this, and based on your guys' question, I will call it a day, or if I miss someone else's question, I apologize. I'm going to try to go through all of them and as much as I can. And let me see here. Yeah. Sam said, I get the data side now, finally. So get a mic, Sam. I'm not exactly sure what you meant by that, but yeah, remember, it truly is a data business, guys and gals. I cannot stress that enough, right? Append data. You have phone numbers, it doesn't change, and then you can take that and you can apply it for other ways, right? So as you start getting this going and you keep on doing that, right, then I'm going to start compounding, because we talk about in the later training and how to use the other ways to market in front of those individuals, right? So again, get that going, because that's the fastest way, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you already have like a seven-figure business, right, and you're running that and stuff like that, reach out to me personally. Then I can give you some much more higher level strategy. And for the folks that are doing that, I've spoken with you guys over the phone, and we're doing some little bit different stuff. But again, get that going, keep on pumping it out, and then from there, we can do multiple different things. All right, so. I got to get going here. I hope you enjoyed this particular training, and I think you did. So go out there, keep on taking massive action, ladies and gentlemen, and let's have a conversation throughout this week. Love you guys. Take care, and bye-bye.